Hi guys, and welcome to another video. In this video I want to talk about pawn structures, and understanding pawn structures is very crucial in your chess development because the pawn structure usually tells us where to put the pieces, where the weaknesses are, and many other things. So it's very crucial to understand them to become a better chess player. So that's why we want to have a look at a very complicated situation, because there are many changes to the pawn structure possible, and we need to evaluate correctly which changes favor us and which changes don't favor us. And that's why it's your turn again, and you should think about this position here. It's black to move, and you should think about the pawn structure. Which pawn structure do you want to create here? Which pawn structure do you want to keep as it is? And what would be your move? So we continue. So there are many ways to play this position, and there are some ways which I like and some ways which I don't like. So the first thing you should avoid, I think, is going d5, because we're not really prepared for it. The knight is pinned, so it's quite annoying. And after, let's say, takes, this would just blunder pawn. And also taking here on c3 now is not that harmful, and also here white can just recapture, and black does not even gain the pawn back because the knight is pinned. And if the queen takes, we take on f6. Recapture is maybe almost forced. Yes, it's forced because e4, I think, loses. Or no, not this one, of course, as this would blunder the queen. Maybe this is some fighting chance, but only white can be better. For example, if I just do anything, I'm pawn up. So yeah, this would blunder the black queen. So black is in trouble here, I guess. So, and that's not what you should do. So what else could you consider? You might consider playing something like, yeah, just making no changes to the pawn structure, which I think is reasonable in one or another way. But I also like the plan that we damage white's pawn structure. And this is the thing we want to focus on today, because it's sometimes very hard for people to evaluate how is it giving up a bishop for the sake of damaging the pawns, but giving the bishop pair to the opponent. But I will show you how to play against the double pawns, how to restrict the pair of bishops, and also play for a win with knight and bishop, and really to make use of those double pawns. Why I like this more is we have some clear weaknesses to target, and if we just keep the structure as it is, let's say we play d6, I think there might be not such a big chance to really fight for an advantage here, because he might just guard his knight by the queen, and we cannot damage his structure in the future. So this is the chance, and this chance might be over soon, so we should take the chance if we are sure. So now we have provoked a little weakness in his pawn structure, and we need to come up with some ideas how to fix it and not to allow any counterplay for the bishops. For example, it would be very dubious to play d5 now, as it's just the same as we saw before, and we allow him to trade off his weakness on c4 and c3. And we need to fix it in some other way. But now it's the question how to do it. Should we start with c5? Should we start with d6? Or should we start with h6? So this is the moment for you. You can think about it. How would you try to fix the weaknesses? And how would you try to have your pieces after this? And we will now discuss some of the moves. So I think what is very reasonable is to play h6, because white does not like to take, because after this he does not have the pair of bishops as a compensation for the damaged pawn structure. And ideally I would place my pawns like this as black, and then try to target the c4 pawn, try to come via the b line, and this bishop on d3 is quite poor. So he does not like to trade it, and there are two ways he could retreat. He can either go to h4, which we will cover in more detail, or to e3. And after e3, it's very important that we are in time to play d6, threatening c5 and really making this bishop here a bad piece because it's so restricted by our pawns. Maybe also instead of c5 we have the idea of putting the bishop to e6 and the knight to d7, and then maybe bring the knight to c5. So here it's very important that white is not really in time to spoil our structure with c5, as we still have the answer d5 with a good center, and white is not getting rid of his double pawns. So that's very important. So actually h6 is the move I like best here. If we go c5 first, this is a bit critical, I think, because we are not yet developed and white might gain some initiative with f4, and it's not so easy for us here, as we are not in time to play something like this, as he would just get too much pressure here and damage our king. So c5 is a bit critical. Also, we lose the potential to have some counterplay on this diagonal. So this is also, from a tactical point of view, a bit annoying for black. And finally, d6. I think this is also quite reasonable, same as h6, but I like asking the bishop first because white needs to make up his mind and show us his plans after h6, and we want to see his cards as soon as possible, and that's why we should ask him first before committing to d6, because if he maybe is doing something really strange, we might also change our plans. So there is no need that we commit to d6 already here. So after h6, bishop h4, I have another question for you, which is, what do you think about the move g5, followed by kind of closing in the bishop with d6 and saying this is a really bad bishop there, and we keep the position closed as we should do it with playing with a knight against a bishop? What do you think? Should we go for this, or should we instead just play d6, not weaken our king? What do you think? Take your time and we will continue here. So actually the idea is quite common, but at the moment it's a bit too early, and maybe you can spot it here. What is white's strong reaction if we are here with a premature g7, g5? And the answer is white has c5, and this time this opens the position successfully. We are not yet well defended on e5, and we don't want to open the position for the bishops, and we don't want him to trade his double pawn, and we can also not really play d5, as his bishop could take on e5 anyway. So the idea is nice, but it's too early, and that's why we should start with d6. Now c5, we have a pleasant choice, I would guess. Maybe we just grab the pawn, and then playing something very solid like queen here, bishop here. He's not really rerouting this bishop to e3 that quickly, but we could also consider playing d5, which is a bit more double-edged in my opinion, but it looks fine too. So this is not a big deal in this situation, and if he would now drop the bishop back, we would be in time to, for example, control this potential c5 break with, for example, knight d7 is an idea, maybe queen b6 is also an idea, queen a5 is an idea, or also c5 might be an idea. So there are many ideas, but we are in control. We don't allow his counterplay opening the position for his bishops. And that's very important, and we would also be happy that he just retreats from this annoying pin voluntarily. So what white did is to play queen to e2, and now it's time to go g5. And the difference is really that we now are in control. It's our turn again, and we realize c5 is a threat and play c5 ourselves. And now the knight is doing really, really well because the position is so closed. There are no open diagonals in the center for the bishop, so we have a pawn structure in the center, and it's really fixed. There are no open lines, there are no open diagonals, and that's what the bishops dislike, yes? So in this position, the knight is feeling quite comfortable. Maybe white is rerouting the bishop, but then the knight will also be able to join the game, and we can improve slowly and try to target the weakness on c4 or c3 in the long term. So I hope you found this instructive, and if you like the content, like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would help a lot, and hope to see you next time. Goodbye.